Good evening, and welcome to Focus Springfield and a forum among the candidates for Ward City Council positions here in Springfield. This evening, we're going to be talking to the candidates in the wards where there are contested races. And the format of tonight's discussion is going to be pretty simple and straightforward. We have a group of questions that are going to be asked by area journalists. Everyone participating in this Zoom forum is going to get the same questions as everyone else. The answers to those questions will be 90 seconds. And Steve Carey, our producer, is the man with the stopwatch, and the bell. There we go. There's the bell. And so we ask you to respect the 90 seconds. With me this evening is Matt Safransky from Western Mass Politics Insight, Paul Tuthill from WAMC, Liz Roman from The Republican. So to begin with, just to let everybody know who's here. From Ward 3, we have Melvin Edwards. We have Leslie Braxton Campbell. From Ward 4, we have Janae McDonald. From Ward 6, we have Victor Avila. From Ward 8, we have Zeta Govan. We did invite Bob Collimore, who's running in Ward 6. He sent us a message that he is declining to participate because he's been ill. We have not yet heard from City Council incumbent Malo Brown, and we have not heard from Lisa Thompson in Ward 8. Now, following the discussion with the City Council candidates, we're going to have a discussion with the two candidates who are running in a ward position for the school committee. So I ask all the candidates to mute themselves until we call upon you. I know that after more than a year of being tortured by Zoom rules, we all know what the deal is, we all understand muting, and we all forget to do it every now and then. And that's okay. We're just human beings here. So what we're going to do first for our City Council candidates is to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves to the voters, an opening statement which will be of 2 minutes, which is an extraordinarily long period of time for those of you who aren't used to public speaking. But don't worry, you have 2 minutes. If you go short, that's all right. So we're doing this in simply the number of the order of wards. So we're going to start with Ward 3, and we're going to start with Melvin Edwards, who is the incumbent. Melvin, you've got 2 minutes to introduce yourself to the voter.
Well, first of all, thank you, Mike, and all the organizers for allowing me this opportunity to speak to the voters. I appreciate this opportunity to introduce myself. I, Melvin Edwards, am a six-term city councilor here in Ward 3. This is the ward of my birth. I am a lifelong resident. I am married and have lived for the past 26 years on Dexter Street in Springfield. I am the father of a blended family of 6 children. I have 14 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren, majority of which reside in the city of Springfield. I have a record of service, and I'm hopeful tonight to get a chance to speak on my record of service. I'm presently the president of the Maple Heights Six Corner Neighborhood Council. I'm also presently the president of Keep Springfield Beautiful, the premier environmental organization in the city of Springfield. I'm on the city council. I am chairman of the Responsible Employer Ordinance Committee, as well as chairman of the General Government Committee, and I am the liaison to the Dog Officers Committee as well. I am a member also of the Springfield Preservation Trust, a member of the Ward 3 Democratic Committee, and a past member of the Cultural Center. I thank everybody for this opportunity to introduce myself, and I look forward to answering questions tonight.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, so next up will be Leslie Braxton Campbell.
Good evening, everyone. I want to also say thank you for organizing this forum today, this debate, and have us here. It's an honor to speak to folks about why I'm running. So if you don't know me, my name is Leslie Braxton Campbell, currently reside in Ward 3 and have on Maple Street for the last 10 years. And before that, I grew up on Fort Pleasant Avenue. I have been in Springfield the majority of my life. I'm a graduate of the Springfield Renaissance School and Westfield State University. After college, I went on to become an educator after a different career and taught in Springfield Public Schools for the last 4 school years. My most recent year at Chestnut was a history teacher, and I love our youth for many different reasons. Outside of being an educator, I have had the honor and the joy of serving different organizations in different capacities right now, including being on the board of Neighbor to Neighbor, also being the president of the Young Democrats in Massachusetts, being on the board of Bay State Stonewall Democrats, and also, which one of my favorite roles, being a commissioner of the Massachusetts Commission on LGBTQ Youth, because our youth are the future, and I love doing the work that I do on the commission to make sure that we're providing safe and healthy environments for them. I may not have held office yet, but I will be speaking tonight about my different experiences and what I have to bring to the council. So I want to say thank you for having me here again, and I look forward to talking more about what I plan to do.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to Ward 4 now, and Steve Carey just informed me that he received a message from Councilor Brown that he is declining to participate tonight. So we're going to be speaking here to Janae McDonald and giving her 2 minutes to introduce herself to elders.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, for Springfield, for hosting this forum and working diligently to make sure that the residents have an opportunity to know who is running and to give us a platform to tell them more about ourselves. I think it's really a shame, unfortunately, that my opponent is not able to attend. However, that's another reason why I'm the best candidate for this Ward 4 City Council seat. I have a record of public service, I have a record of showing up, and I have a record of speaking out. As a lifelong resident of the city of Springfield, a mother of 3 children, and a homeowner in Ward 4, I refuse now to sit on the sidelines and watch my neighborhood be robbed of its true potential and leadership. I've already been working on issues to tackle within a community by fighting to improve the quality of our neighborhood parks, address public safety concerns, and speak out on other issues that matter to our community the most. I am currently the Family Child Care Coordinator for SEIU Local 509. I am also the Western Mass Regional Chapter Coordinator for the Common Start Coalition, which is working to bring universal access childcare to Massachusetts and cap the cost of childcare for families. I'm also the Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees for Springfield Technical Community College. So solving for our young people from birth all the way through college and really using workforce development background and education background is really important in the daily work that I do. I also serve on the Board of Directors for Pioneer Valley Project. I'm the community calendar editor for African American Point of View, and I'm also on the board of directors for Valley Eye Radio. It's my professional experience in education, workforce development, and relation.
We've hit the time now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem. Nope.
I told Stephen I couldn't hear the bell when we were.
Okay, well, we'll just wave a
backstage.
flag. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Okay, so now up for an introduction of himself is incumbent City Councilor Victor Davila from Ward 6. Victor?
Thank you, Mike, and good afternoon to everybody, and thank you to you, Mike, for hosting today's forum. And most importantly, thank you to the viewers, the voter in Springfield, for watching this and allowing us into living room. My name is Springfield City Councilor Victor Davila. I am currently finishing my first term in the City Council. I was first elected in 2019, and it has really been truly a privilege and honor to be City Council. And I'm ready to get back to work in the City Council. I've been married to my lovely wife for 19 years. We just turned 19 years last week. She's a much better than me. She's a great partner, a great wife, and my rock. I also will live with our 2 canine children, Rocky and Romeo. I am currently president also of the Forest Park Civic Association. I am a member of the Holy Name Church here in Springfield, and I currently work as an EMT here in the city of Springfield. Some of my achievements in the City Council, my first was able to, 1, keep a budget on the city budget. 2, I was able to fight to keep $11 million from the DOT for the X project on the X, and I was able to advocate for N95 masks at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic for police officers. And one of the achievements.
And that's time, sir. That's time.
Oh, that was great.
Thank you. Okay, so next we go to Ward 8 and Zeta Govan.
So hi, first of all, I also want to say thank you to organizers of this forum. Thank you for Mike Dobb for being the moderator. So my name is Govan. I'm running for Ward 8 City Council because I've been doing the work. I am currently, let me start with my background. I was in Puerto Rico, and was brought here when I was 3 years old, went through the public school system, graduated from the High School of Commerce, went to college. I'm currently a licensed independent clinical social worker. I raised 3 children here in the city of Springfield. My husband and I, who have been married for 20 years, have 6 children altogether. And we have a bunch of grandchildren that we're raising and that we're helping to raise because they're with their parents, thank God. I'm currently the president of the Indian Orchard Citizens Council, and my record in Indian Orchard proves that it can get things done. I have been able to help the Indian Orchard community bring community gardens, as I did in the Mason Square community. I brought help the Eastman Foundation. They've trusted the Citizens Council with grant money to help small businesses during the pandemic who were struggling to survive. I was able to help bring money for the ponds in Indian Orchard, as well as the Godfrey Triangle revitalized. I'm continuing to work on all of those things. We'll continue to work to make sure that
And we've hit the time now.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to have a series of questions, and as I said, they're questions for every one of the city council candidates. Each candidate will get 90 seconds to answer the question, and again, we're going to go in terms of an order, just the same order we've done right now, because it just sort of makes the greatest amounts of sense to establish an order to answer the questions. So I'm going to ask the first question, and then my colleagues are going to come up and they're going to ask their questions. So we live in a city that for the past 15 years or so has been obsessing about several large economic development issues, specifically Union Station, the Railroad Car Company, and MGM Springfield. So the question I'd like to ask the candidate for City Council is what they would like to see as the next chapter in economic development for the city of Springfield. And this could be small business, big business. I'd like to get a sense of what you think the city, what direction you think the city should go in. Okay, so we're going to start again, and it's going to be for 90 seconds. When you hear the bell, it means you've got 10 seconds. And then when Steve just goes ballistic on the bell, that means that you have to end your answer. So, Ward 3, Melvin Edwards, what should be the next chapter in economic development for the city of Springfield?
Thank you, Mike. It needs to be multifaceted. I think one of the main concerns across the city is that we need to increase our taxable income and take off the burden both on small businesses, but also on the residential property owners across the city. There is a need for quality housing across the city. I believe that that can become a part of an economic end that can drive jobs and bring up wages across the city. We all understand, have an appreciation for housing stock and the deterioration throughout the neighborhoods. So for the city to be vibrant, not only do we need Main Street, but we need the side streets off of Main Street where residents live to be improved. We need investment that extends into the neighborhoods. And I believe that we're heading in that direction now, and we're having the right kinds of conversations about how we expand and repurpose some of the office space that is now running vacant because of the change in the workplace, as well as in our neighborhoods where people are struggling to be able to maintain their older homes and where they have lived for generations.
Hey, thank you, sir. Okay, the same question for Leslie Braxton Campbell.
So I believe we really need to focus on our small businesses, and I see a lot of opportunity there. So in Springfield, we have a lot of entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial spirit, but yet we have a lot of vacant office fronts and a lot of vacant space that can be used. And so I believe we need to, as a city, invest in those small businesses, give folks a platform and a way to grow, so that way that in turn will affect the rest of the city and the rest of our community. Think about, I now work from home. I'm a director at a nonprofit, and I utilize a small business to go and to work at. And so that's just like one way that I support small businesses, but that another way that they're being creative to help the residents in the city. And there's more opportunity there, but we have to invest in it. So I say the small business, is one of the ways to go. And I think that we will see a really good return on investment on the city by focusing on them.
Thank you. Okay, next up with that question would be Janae McDonald. Janae, what would be the next chapter for economic development in the city of Springfield for you?
Thank you. I have a couple points to make about that. We need to provide opportunity for members of marginalized communities to have training and work development opportunities so that they can build their skill set to enter into some of the most recent economic development injuries through MGM, CRRC, and things like that. Because one of the issues that I know that was faced with MGM at one point, which was we had this economic opportunity, but we needed to be able to meet the hiring and the quota demand that these industries needed. And so we need to make sure that we're giving those folks an opportunity to earn a livable and prevailing wage. The other thing that we need to do, the next biggest booming industry that we're dealing with is marijuana. And we need to give members that have been a part of being disenfranchised by the criminalization of marijuana, and I'm talking about Black and brown individuals, and we need to allow them opportunities to legally enter to the market. And that goes all the way down to small business, micro business, make sure that they have an opportunity to earn something back for these individuals who just a few years ago would be jailed for something like marijuana. Just like Leslie said, we also need to fill these storefronts that we have throughout the city. We're at a very great time where we can use some of these COVID dollars to do this, to support current small businesses and expand and start new businesses.
Okay, next up with that question would be Victor Davila.
Okay, am I unmuted? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for the question, Mike. I would have to say, first of all, a couple of points. One, that regarding the Union Station, which you mentioned, we need to figure out and work with the other cities and towns and this state, because we are operating with the Union Station on a yearly basis and approximately $1 million deficit. That makes a whole budget, and we need to close that loophole and close that meeting, because $1 million is a lot of money for a city like us. I also agree, all businesses, it's the key for in any part of the world, especially here in Springfield. So we are in a great position now with the ARP money, so known as the ARPA money, to help some of these existing businesses and new business to really thrive in the city of Springfield. I also think that we need to, when possible, that we need to continue to partner with the unions to bring apprenticeship into the city so that our young people can get a good, fair wage, decent job here in the city of Springfield. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. And last with this question right now would be Zeta Govan. Zeta?
Unmute. Okay. So economic development, I think, is very important, and good to start would be like somebody said, in small businesses. A lot of small businesses in the city. I think that we need a way to support them, help them. Example, Wellspring Cooperative out here in Indian Orchard, their tax rate is exorbitant, and we need to figure out a way to help them reduce their tax base and not have to pay so much in taxes. And then we also have to look at big conglomerate businesses that we have in our city and make sure that they're paying their fair. I agree that we need to figure out a way to people make living wages, prevailing wages. I suggest we have high school students go into the city jobs that are vacant right now, and that would help the tax base, that would help the high school students, it will help people stay in our city. One of the things that I always say is that I love my community and I want people to stay here, and we have to find a way to help them to stay here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to ask Liz Roman from the Republican to come up here to the lectern and to give you her question. Liz?
Good evening, everyone. So the mayor and his administration have met with over 30 neighborhood councils and organizations to see how they would like to spend the American Rescue Plan Act funding, or ARPA, that's allotted for Springfield. What do you think are some of the most pressing needs in your ward that would qualify for ARPA funding? And we'll stay in the same order, beginning with Melvin Edwards.
First, I'd like to thank the mayor and show my appreciation for meeting with me personally, and also with my council to discuss these issues. In my neighborhood and in the area that I represent, we have many of the great Victorian homes. People are struggling to maintain homes. Myself and three of my colleagues have put together a plan, and we have reached out to the mayor before we publicized it and made sure that we had it vetted by the law department. We made sure that economic development was on board, and we made sure we had the support of the mayor, and it's called a housing trust. It is multifaceted. It will address these large homes and even the homes across the whole city, not just in my ward, but across the whole city, for people who are struggling to do exterior work, painting, roofs, foundation work, porches, things that would raise their values. The second component of that plan would address the vacant lots across the city, where we would send out and make available for those who build houses, build single and two-family owner-occupied homes on those properties. And the third part of the plan is for us to address the multitude of vacant office space throughout the city that is probably not going to come back on because of the change in the workforce. And we're hopeful that those properties can now be repurposed into good quality homes and housing for working class people across the city.
Thank you. Same question for you, Leslie Camp.
I think I'm unmuted. So with the ARPA funds, I know housing's already been talked about. Also small businesses, and there's an opportunity, if we're looking specifically at Ward 3, to invest in the vacant spaces and empty spaces in order to create space for small business. From talking to residents and just asking like what are their needs, I believe that some of the ARPA funding can be focused there. And I think about some of the parks that we have in Ward 3. And in fact, that we have Johnny Appleseed Park that isn't the best place for children to be, and finding a way like to clean up the parks, and also just overall neighborhood investment. So I know that I'm saying like these big like idea things and like not in concrete things, but it's because I have asked like individual people, you know, like if with the city like have this money, how can we improve your quality of life directly? And I've heard that, and then I've also related it to, like I said, housing and small businesses. And I got a little nervous here. Let me just throw that out there, just be honest. But making sure that what we do with that money, it also goes to people who are impacted the most through COVID. I see the warning. We have marginalized communities that were impacted, and especially a lot of population in Ward 3. I want to make sure that
sorry, Leslie, that's time. Okay, thanks. Janae Donald, Ward 4.
Thank you so much. It's a really awesome question. And I just want to ensure that I say that it's not necessarily what I think, but I'm going to tell you what I've been hearing from the residents, because that's who I use as my compass when I think about how I'm going to fight to improve my district. One of the major things that I've been hearing senior citizens is they want to be able to apply for the funds so that they can make improvements to their homes. Many of our senior citizens are living now on fixed incomes and want to be able to get their homes up to code so that they don't lose their home to the city. The other thing that we need to do is make sure we're investing in our young people and really building out robust programs for young folks. Our community centers need to be built out so they can offer better programming. Ward 4 has the highest amount of young people in its district in comparison to other districts. When I think about that, I think about the place like the Fan Center, the Boys and Girls Club on Acorn Street, which has not been updated in decades, and they need to expand in order to meet the needs of the community around them. The other third thing is a lot I've been hearing residents want to be able to open up their own business, and they want to be able to own where they're opening business, not lease. Ownership is very important. Home ownership, business ownership. Lastly, if we can find a way to have some type of urban farming or food co-op, because Ward 4 is a food desert. We do not have a full service grocery store, and that is still an issue that needs to be addressed. And my opponent has been in office for over 2 years and had nothing to do anything about that.
Thank you. Victor Davila, same question. If you need me to ask it again, you can let me know.
Thank you, Liz, for the question. First of all, I have to say that the $127 million that we have in ARPA money is really a great opportunity for the city of Springfield to really put us into the next chapter, into a better chapter in economic development here in the city. Here in Forest Park, I have two things that the money could really be used for to enhance quality of life. One is to really come up with a comprehensive trash and litter program to help us clean our streets. And not only for this Forest Park area, but for the whole city. It seems to me a city that is continuously clean on a constant basis, downtown Springfield, which is great. But there's thousands, 100,000 people that live throughout the city. And so one, we need to develop a comprehensive trash litter program and other components that go into it. And two, just to keep in term housing, to continue the rental and loan program, the mortgage program that the city has developed, because this pandemic, we are facing the health now, but the economic problem is going to last for a long time, and we need to continue to ensure that people stay in their homes.
Thank you. Zaida, Ward 8.
So ARPA money, the mayor did the same thing when and the Ward 8 came out. They talked about having services out that we don't have. A community center seniors to attend, after school programming youth to attend. So along the lines of what some of the other candidates said, services specifically for youth and seniors and veterans, housing is very important. Something that we want to do out here is we want to bring the C3 community model out here, because we have one ordinance officer out here that controls Ward 8. Ward 8 is a big ward, and that's not enough for the residents in Indian Orchard. They would like to see more police presence out here, and I think community model like the C3 program would be excellent to bring out here, and I think that we could use some of the ARPA money to do some of that. I agree with housing issues that we need to continue to work on, small businesses support for the small businesses. I think that's important. So those are the comments that I think should be brought forth, and those are what the residents in the Ward 8 also said. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Saida. Just so you know, some of your answer at the beginning was cut out, so your service might be a little bit off.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just maybe want to look at it.
Thank you. I'm actually at the Indian Orchard Citizens Council building, which is kind of, we're having chess in the out here.
That's okay. We wanted you to know it. We all have technology, right? Okay, so our next question is going to come from Matt Safransky from Western Mass Politics and Insight.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to stay on the topic of the American Rescue Plan Act and discuss some of the ways that the city has already spent the money. As many of you may be aware, the city has spent ARPA funds to purchase a number of downtown buildings, which did not happen without some controversy. What are your thoughts about how the city has used these funds, and are you worried about the precedent it sets of the city buying commercial properties, such as the ones that it purchased downtown with ARPA funding? And we will start with Melvin Edwards.
Well, only problem I would have had with the acquisition of the buildings, I think it needed to be brought before the council before it was announced that the intention. Other than that, support the ideal, and one of the reasons for it, as a lifelong resident for too long, we have done things piecemeal. And one of the things that I've advocated as the council is that we need a long-term plan. No community across this country has a city that is vibrant without a vibrant downtown. And unfortunately, when we don't control the buildings and the developments along Main Street, we get what we get. And it's driven by the market, but sometimes the market is conducive to what is best for the residents and for the city of Springfield. So what I've explained to people is that if you allow these buildings to be sold at auction, then they just go to the highest bidder, who probably doesn't live in the city of Springfield and only interest is making money on the city of Springfield. By the acquiring of these key pieces and using these funds, the city now can put them out as an RFP. So we'll have control over the future use. We have enough pawn shops. We have enough nail shops in the downtown area. We need to have be able to sit at the table and have a voice about what is brought to Main Street, and as well as the other business corridors across the city. So the precedent that we would use money to acquire property should be extended into the neighborhood business area and zones as well.
Thank you. Leslie, you're up. If you need me to repeat the question, I can do that for you.
I said, thank you for the question, Matt. So I know we need a vibrant downtown, but I don't agree with the way the purchase of the buildings was gone about. And I believe that as soon as that funding came into the city, we needed to look at and invest in the communities that were directly impacted by COVID the most. We have the opportunity with these funds to really, one, help impact the communities that lost out during COVID, but also to invest in the future in those communities. And I feel like that's where that money should have gone towards first, not just the purchase of commercial property downtown, and especially not with going through the council and making sure that that is what those who were elected by everybody okay with, like for the mayor to do. So looking forward with the ARPA funding, we really want to I plan to make sure that the people and those who are impacted the most, and those who will benefit the most, do get it, and make sure that as we are building up our city, making it a more vibrant place, that we are doing so with the mind that it's beneficial for the people who live here, who are the majority of the population here. And like it was said before, I will acknowledge that that money is staying, not going to people outside of Springfield.
Janae McDonald, you're up. Janae, you're up.
Thanks, Matt. So I just want to say, and I'm going to be very brief, that I'm very disappointed at the city's move to dip into the ARPA funds. And I think it's a slap in the face of the residents. Looking forward to those funds to help move and propel lives forward and actually recover or continue to attempt to recover from COVID-19. It's especially disappointing considering residents' growing concerns with transparency in government, and especially in city government. I'm even more turned by the fact that my opponent had the audacity to remain silent on the issue, like he has on all issues, and he is the chair of economic development. And so I want to say that when I'm with Ward City Councilor, I will speak up. I understand that things sometimes fly underneath the radar. Once you catch it, you are owed a diligence, and I will owe it to my residents and to the city of Springfield to speak up and remedy. Thank you.
Thank you. Victor Davila, you're up.
Thank you, Matt, for the question. Yes, I'm concerned how the city is using the ARPA money in downtown. Although I agree that we absolutely need a vibrant downtown, I am very concerned with 2 points. One, the clarity. When we were presented the ARPA funding, where we told about the illness, and believe me when I tell you that this is not the last minute deal, this was not a knockdown price. Somebody had to know something about this way before. And so that was tremendously the lack of clarity that the city has this particular issue. And another concern that I have on this is that the what has been described before as the artificial market price in downtown area, because this is going to affect the beautiful neighborhood that we have in this, the beautiful neighborhood that we have in the South End. And so I'm concerned with the rising market in downtown. And to be honest with you, we need to make sure that this fits with the overlay district that we have a while back. And in order to make sure that the overlay district to have a vibrant downtown, which we'll want, we have to be clear, we have to be transparent. So I am very concerned, because the last thing that I want is
10 seconds.
Money entirely for downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Zaida Khan, you're up.
Thank you. Matt, could you please repeat the question?
Certainly. We were discussing the use of ARPA funding that purchased a couple of buildings downtown. So the question is, what are your thoughts about using the funds such as ARPA like this? And are you worried about the precedent it could set with the city buying commercial properties in this manner?
Thank you so much, Matt. I am very concerned about the process that they went through to purchase those buildings. As it was said, there was no transparency, there was no community input, there was no community dialogue, and the city council wasn't even made aware of it until after the fact. That's a terrible precedent to set, and I'm hoping that the backlash that they got will help to prevent something else like that happening again. The ARPA money, as was said, is supposed to be for the community to rebound from the effects of the pandemic. And because that's what those funds are for, I'm not sure how 2 vacant buildings is going to benefit the community. If they're going to make it in housing, if they're going to, do something for community, then that's something different. But again, I think transparency is very important, and we need to have community input as well as city council input to make sure that we're doing the right for our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so our next question is going to be asked by Paul Tuthill of WAMC Radio.
And thank you. So another economic question, I guess. Has Springfield lost out on an opportunity from legal cannabis since in the roughly 5 years that the industry has been legalized in Massachusetts, the city council has permitted only 4 businesses and just 2 have actually opened. And the first answer, I should say, goes to Mel Edwards, incumbent city councilor in Ward 3.
Well, to answer your question directly, Paul, the answer is yes, we have lost out. I don't have any, I'm not going to offer an excuse for the role of city council in this process, but we should have opened more. We are late to the table. We have lost money. Myself and 2 of my colleagues, when we saw this coming down the pipe, we did the work to make sure that when we did open up these dispensaries, that the money or a good portion of the money created would stay within 1 mile of each of the dispensaries. The city council did their job in terms of making sure that there was no oversaturation in certain areas of neighborhoods and they could be spread all out. But yes, to directly answer your question, we have lost money. We're late to the table, but hopeful that as in the pipeline as we speak right now, there are several. It takes a lot of money to get it started, but it also takes a lot of money to get open. And we hope that the process will be streamlined so that we can get them open as quickly as we can. The benefits to the community for those who are not into cannabis, they will not take of it. But the reality is it's a legal business and we have left money on it.
And same question now to Leslie Campbell. Legal marijuana, has Springfield lost out on this?
I definitely believe the city has lost out on it. And as the city looks to approve more permits and dispensaries, I think we need to be very cognizant that there are a lot of entrepreneurs in the city and there are a lot of people who have been affected by the overcriminalization of marijuana. And that as we approve the businesses and dispensaries, that the people that are getting approved come from communities that are the most impacted by that. Because right now what we're seeing as dispensaries get approved, and this is all around the country, not just specifically here, that they are owned by people who either were affiliated with folks who profited off criminalization of marijuana, or their own people who were not directly impacted by it. So I will make sure that as we are open dispensaries and approving these, that it stays within the community, and that we are definitely seeing Black and brown ownership of dispensaries in the city of Springfield. Because as we know, like I just said 2 times, that's who was impacted by the criminalization of it.
Thank you. And now to Ward 4 and candidate Jade McDonald.
Thank you, Paul. I absolutely believe that.
I think you're muted. Janae, you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. What I was saying, I said, I think absolutely we're behind the ball on cannabis. And, we're missing out on an economic development opportunity. We had several models that we could look at throughout the nation. I remember very early on, City Councilor Justin Hurt and a couple of other at-large councilors, then City Councilor Orlando Ramos, took it out to Colorado to see what they're doing, to see what their models are. And those are the type of things that we're doing, we need to be doing, not necessarily trying to reinvent the wheel. And again, when I think about, and I can't help but think of this, when we talk about missing major economic development opportunities, my opponent is the chair of economic development, but has been absent. And when I say absent, I'm talking about missing 50% of meetings, and he didn't even show up tonight. And so when you have that same counselor who's supposed to be the chair of economic development not showing up to meetings, how do you expect to really get anything done? How do we stop missing these opportunities? And I'm going to tell you how. We need someone who's going to be able to show up, speak up, and do the work. And my district has had a fair share of community members, like I said earlier, who have been negatively impacted by the criminalization of marijuana. And we owe it our community to give them a leader that's going to show up and that's going to do the work, and that's going to make sure that we don't miss out on any more economic development opportunities.
That's time. Thank you. And next, with the same question on whether Springfield has lost an economic opportunity from legal cannabis, Vic Davila.
Thank you, Paul, for the question. And absolutely, we have missed out. We have on the tax revenue this creating, which, by the way, is established 1/3 of the tax will be going funnel back into the neighborhood where the retail store is located. So we have lost on the tax revenue. We have also lost on the job creation that the industry has created here in the city of Springfield. And so we need to ensure, we need to continue working with the administration that we have, one, a clear selection process. There has been a lot of question about the selection process. We need to make sure that where retailers are going is a fit in the neighborhood as well. And we need to make sure we continue to have direct neighborhood input on these proposed retail stores. So it is, it's the law now. Tax money, we are making job creation here. But I also think that this industry needs to be an industry that is slowly is into, we have measured growth into this kind of industry. So absolutely, we're missing tax money and we're missing job creation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilor Davila. Finally, from Ward 8, Zeta Govan.
Thank you so much. That's a great question. And I agree that Springfield has missed out because of the delay in opening up the cannabis shops. But I also have to commend the city council for taking their time and trying to be very diligent in make sure they don't open up too many and that they're in the right place. Not only has Springfield lost on some tax revenue, but of course, as was said, Black and brown entrepreneurs have missed out. 80% of the marijuana licenses are not Black and brown owned. And we need to, find a way to make sure we do that. We allow them access. We also need to welcome more cultivators. The Eastfield Mall came to the council meeting one time with a cultivation plan. I'm not sure where that is, but we need to, maximize the city's revenue and create more jobs that way. We have to figure out a way to make sure that our Black and brown communities are benefiting from this. And I think, like Janae said, that the ones who were criminalized by it, they need to have some sort of reparation. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks. We're going to now start our cycle all over again with Liz Roman, who's going to come up with another question.
Nice to see you guys all again. So let's talk about a perennial favorite, voter turnout. The upcoming election doesn't have a mayoral or gubernatorial race, so generally that's a pretty low voter turnout. Do you think your race in particular will bring voters out to the polls? And do you think that the option for mail-in voting will have an impact on turnout? And we're going to continue in the same order, so we'll start with Melvin in Ward 3.
The voter turnout will be low. I expect it to be low. I think, but will be impacted in a positive way by voter mail. I think it's a good idea. It's a degree of convenience that many working class people need, and it eliminates the crowd on election day at the polling places. There's nothing wrong with voting mail. I think it can be done securely. I've taken the steps to make sure that the voters in my ward are hearing from me and getting the message of my proof of service, and make sure that they have access to me and to my team, so that if they have questions or concerns moving before the day of the election, that they can reach out and get those concerns addressed. I believe that there's other things that we could do to increase voter turnout, and participation is important. I don't criticize those who choose not to participate, but I do encourage them to be involved with the process, and not only in the election of the city council, but all of the elections, and to also be involved in their neighborhood councils or elections as well.
Thank you. Leslie, same question.
So being in Ward 3, we have very, very low voter turnout. And one of the things when I decided to run for office and created a goal and saying that I want to make sure that I'm engaging as many people as it makes sense and as possible, and finding ways to energize them and to get them to the polls. Because their voice being left behind and they're leaving their on the table. And I believe that's very important, but also I want to take time to figure out, okay, well, what is the root cause of that? Right? We have low voter turnout, and not just across the city, especially in off year, but especially here. But that is a lot of things, right? That's from lack of in local government, right? And people just feeling like, well, my vote like doesn't matter because I don't see this person. I don't really see the direct impact. So also thinking about and talking to them like, okay, well, if you want to vote, what can I do after if elected as a counselor to keep you informed, keep you engaged, and make sure you know what's going on and make sure your voice is heard? We are, it's 2021, and things that have worked before continue to work, but to be innovative in the ways that we do permit and in the ways that we do outreach in order to get people involved, but we have to energize them. So I believe that mail-in voting is very crucial. It's very important. It makes the polls more accessible, especially for people who do have to work on election day, work overnight.
Sorry, Leslie, it's time. Janae, same question for you. Do you think your race will people out to the polls? And how do you feel about mail-in voting?
Unequivocally, my race is going to bring people out because I'm going to do my due diligence and I'm going to work hard to bring them out. I'm not going about this as politics as usual. And I'm not only going after super voters, which is what candidates sometimes tend to do, right? You only go after those that are guaranteed to come out. And I'm saying that the formula that needs to change and that candidates need to take responsibility for increasing voter turnout. So I'm making sure I do that work. One of the things that I would like to have seen replicated this year was just like last year where the automatic mail-in ballot went out to residents. And I think many residents were expecting that to happen this year, and it did not. Now they did get notification and the ability to apply for an absentee ballot application. It kind of almost replicates that, but not quite. And it's not going to give you the same amount of voter turnout as that automatic mail-in voting will give you. And so that is something that I would like to see happen moving forward. The other thing is, when people run for office, when we have contested races, that is what drives and brings out voters. I agree, like I said, there are some folks that are losing faith in the system. It is up to us, and I can understand why people in Ward 4 especially are losing faith in the system, because who we have as current leader. And so I'm going to make my task to be a good example of what a leader should be, encourage people to get on the ballot and run, and make sure that I work to restore the faith of the residents.
Thank you. Victor, same question.
Thank you, Liz, for the question. Liz, I take absolutely nothing granted. When I came here to the States, I spoke no English, we were homeless, and I've always worked very hard. Continue to work, engage voters. We're door knocking, we're making phone calls, we engage in the voter. And most importantly, we engage in the vote, we are listening to them. It is my hope that the mail-in voting notification works, that the voting works. It's a good thing for the voter, and so it's my hope that we'll have an uptick in the results. However, I also have to say all the things that we could be doing. For example, the mayor has not funded the mail-in notification, the voting notification system ordinance that the city council passed about 2 years ago. That line remains unfunded. And so I think that another program that we need to bring back, as we've spoken in the past, is the kids voting program. It's a program in which we worked in the past, and it started teaching kids, our future generation, a sense of civic duty. I'm concerned that we are losing civic duty here in the city and the country. And so we also have to, not only the candidates have the chair, but the city has the chair. This is why I think the voting notifications. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, Saida, how does vote look for Ward 8?
Unfortunately, it's probably going to be the same as it has always been. Where there's not a mayoral race, where there's not a presidential race, voter turnout in Springfield has been historically low. So I believe mail-in voting be a permanent part of our system. And I believe that we need to find a way to have the election commission do something to increase the voter turnout rate. I believe, of course, the candidates out people out the election is good, and it helps a little bit out how much, make. Kids voting, I think that's a great idea, teaching civics in school. We lost a lot of things in our school system in the last 20, 30 years, and I thought we should bring a lot of that stuff back, and one of them I think to bring back. So I think mail-in vote should be permanent, and the election commission should do something big to increase the voter turnout rate. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, candidates, our next question is going to be from Matt
Hello again. Returning to the subject of the economy in the city, of course, everybody was aware of Smith & Wesson's decision to relocate its headquarters from the city after a very long time being here. There will still be some jobs, but there will be some jobs lost here as well. Putting aside the political and legal claims the company made for its departure, there is a very real risk of other entities, other big companies, big employers leaving the city. Well, discussed for years is the possibility, for example, Mass Mutual relocating to like the Seaport in Boston. So the question is, what does the city have to do to retain businesses that it already has, especially those that have options to be somewhere else? We'll start with Melvin.
The city has an obligation to keep these businesses here and to work them, to listen to them. They are the bone of our employment in the city. And when they leave, we feel it across the city, regardless of neighborhood. Taxes are too high, both on the commercial side and on the resident as well. But as we know, the state dictates to the city how much money they need to generate. It doesn't dictate in which formula we use to acquire that and reach that number. But we have to work harder to make sure that we're expanding our taxable income so that we can be sensitive to competition of the southern states. They're not paying prevailing wage, where they're not right to work states, where the cost of living is cheaper. Even here in Western Massachusetts, we compete in the eastern part of the state, as you mentioned, Seaport, because it's easier for them to get employers to settle there than there are here in Springfield. That inequity needs to be addressed legislatively. But on the city side, we need to do better. We need to expand our available workforce through training
10 seconds.
and through education opportunities to our young people that are coming out of high school and then to college as well.
Thank you. Leslie, you're up.
So with businesses like Mass Mutual, we do have to, as a city, make sure that we're doing everything that we can to make sure the quality of life, like one for the employees there, make sure the quality of our employees makes it that the employers want to move, but also make sure that the employer sees the benefit of remaining in Springfield, like such as Mass Mutual. So at the level, there are some things we can do about this, like in regards to taxes and stuff like that. But also, I believe we have to work with the legislature in this case to see what other ways we can do that too. And I say that because Massachusetts and West Mass too, we're the knowledge corridor. So you think about companies like Mass Mutual and the talent we're looking for. We want to make sure that talent wants to come to Springfield and that wants to stay in Springfield. And to be honest, right now, we have people who graduate and they go off to school in places and they don't want to back here. Right. So what are we doing like best in the city to keep those people here? And therefore they want to fill those jobs at a place like Mass Mutual, when if they go across the state to the Seaport, they do a bigger pool of talent. So I believe that there are multiple ways to attack that issue, and at the city level and also working with other entities to incentivize them staying here, that also still allows us to generate revenue and not lose out on money from them being here.
Thank you. Janae, you're up next.
Thank you. Leslie stole my answer just about. And I was going to say, we need to make sure that we're bringing an attractive workforce, right? I like the idea of some tips, but I'm concerned about that, especially considering that many of the burdens, the tax burdens that residents face. And I think sometimes we've seen examples where, the city has given out some tax incentives at times we shouldn't have. But if we have an attractive workforce and we're retaining those, when I tell you, when I see the shift change or let out from Mass Mutual and from, Smith Wesson, and I see a lot of state plates coming in and out of there. So we need to make sure that we're creating a robust pipeline, appropriately use our trade schools and trade programs so that young people have an opportunity. But here's another issue that I have with Smith & Wesson leaving. Springfield has had an enormous amount of gun violence. And I don't think that it's okay for them to just up and leave. I think that they owe the city some sort of reparation, some sort of payment for all gun violence and all of the havoc that has wreaked. You cannot tell me somehow that some of those guns have not made their way illegally out onto the street. So to get up and leave is not okay. Over 500 employees are getting ready to lose their jobs. That means that we're losing the tax base, which means that we're threatening the Massachusetts economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Victor, you're up next.
Thank you much for the question. First I have to say that this has to be worked in conjunction with one original Western Massachusetts, and also at the state level, working closely with the state legislators to ensure that our employees stay here in the city. However, I do have to say that we as a city have to, in my opinion, one, make sure that we are able to provide a ready and able workforce. But that doesn't fall within the city. It also falls on universities and colleges. It takes the whole city to ensure that happens. It's impossible. It's only the city's responsibility, although we need to continue to do our best that that happens. Another thing is that we need to monitor the complaint with the TIF. There's been a few occasions in which we have given a TIF, which is financing, and the employers have not lived up to their expectations and to what the price does. So we need to continue to ensure that your tax money is for use. And finally, that we have to hold companies responsible. For example, every source employer in this area, but yet they owe us or you, the resident, $4 million in property tax. So it takes a tango.
10
and
seconds.
So if I with them, I will ensure that we are tangoing with the right soul. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Zaida, you're up.
Thank you very much. That's a great question. And I think the one thing we can do is to make Springfield look good for people who want to live here and people who want to work here. I believe that we use the ARPA funds to invest in job training that will strengthen and increase our local workforce. We need to look at high school seniors that are coming out of high school that might not want to go to college. Those are ready workers who are willing to work, who probably won't need to be paid what some of the other long-time workers might make. So that would be a savings to the company, as well as a tax base and tax increase for our city, and make it so that they want to live here and want to buy homes here. We will, continue to, scout probably the small businesses that we have here. We have a lot of small businesses in our area. These big corporations, Walmart, Mass Mutual, a lot of times they kind of like bully cities, just like Smith Wesson did, decided to just up and because they found a better deal. And what we have to realize is that we have a lively city, we have a great city, and we just have to make it look good for everyone to want to live here and want to work here and keep their business here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, candidates, we're going to have one more question, and after Paul Tuthill's question, then we'll give all of you another 90 seconds to close up here. So, final question from Paul Tuthill.
Thanks, Mike, and hello again, everyone. My question is, would you support a municipal subsidy to the Pioneer Valley Transit Authority to allow for fare, free public transportation in the city of Springfield? And this question goes first to the Ward 3 candidates, starting with the incumbent Melvin Edwards.
Yes, it depends on the details, and that's where the devil will always reside. The ideal that our working class community and so much of our employees are struggling when you incorporate the rents, cost of utilities, the cost of daycare, and most of your entry level positions are on second and third shift, and public transportation is not most advantageous for entry level positions. Anything gets people to working or eliminates the excuse of people not being able to be gainfully employed, I'm encouraged to try to support. Obviously, I believe that quite often it's not how much money is necessary, it's the will to get it done. And, we as a city have to recognize our shortcomings. We also have to have, what our future can be if we're gainfully employed. And that has to be a livable wage, a wage where people can not only rent, they choose to, can acquire ownership if that be the path they choose, but so that they at least have the choice. And too often their choices are restricted because of factors that they don't control. But the opportunity to be gainfully employed and to be able to get to work or to get about your business across the city is paramount.
Thank you. Same question to Leslie Campbell, financial subsidy for fare-free PVTA.
Yes, I would support this and do support this. And I believe what will come along with that is ensuring that PVTA does have routes that will benefit those who need it most. And as it was referenced before, people having to work all shifts, making sure that our transportation lines can work for them well. We're the third largest city in the Commonwealth. When we look at our public transit system, it wouldn't feel that way. It wouldn't seem that way, right? And compared to Boston, for example. And I have an after college, like lived in the city and moved back that had a robust transit system and did not have to rely on having a vehicle. Now, with that, people using public transit to make sure that the jobs are going to and that they have like a living wage. And I think we have to look at the entire system. The fact that we have people who right now are struggling to get bus fare to go to a job and they're struggling to home. So you're struggling to pay to get to work for the money and come back home. So there's just a lot of investment to have to be done there as well as types of jobs that people have. Although I believe that in doing that, that also helps us move toward being a greener city. And also will help the environment as well, that our air quality that we have on there. So yes, I would support and do support this, and would look forward to having
thank
it
you.
done.
Thank you. That's time. Thank you. Same question now to Janae McDonald, candidate in Ward 4.
Thank you, Paul. Absolutely. Having a fully funded, fully functioning transit system is essential to public safety. We can put the work, the employment part aside. Leslie, Councilor, talked about that. But one of the things when I used to work with and still do work with at-risk populations, and I'm talking about young parents programs with probation participants. I was a reentry specialist. One of the major things that we had to make sure we provided them with were bus passes so that they could show up and get to their programs so they can do their due diligence and become rehabilitated and be contributing to society. When I think about public safety, I don't just think employment. I think about the mother who needs to get to the doctor's office and get to the doctor appointment on time. Maybe doesn't want to have to walk 2 miles in the wintertime with baby in a stroller to get the doctor's appointment. I think about the senior citizen who wants to be able to get to the grocery store because there's not a grocery store in the neighborhood and they have to take the bus, or maybe he has to wash clothes. So I think of it from this, really holistic standpoint. And I think also fair share amendment would be an excellent way on a state level to help solve for that we can have a fully funded and more flexible functioning transportation system.
All right, thank you. Same question to Victor Davila, Ward 6, fare-free PVTA.
Absolutely, Paul. The municipal financial subsidy is absolutely necessary. It will be a justice for the people. And I have to say that the previous speaker just said that the fair share amendment goes hand in hand with this. Let's keep in mind that any great city through the history of the world, whether it is Aztecs, the Greeks, the Romans, they have one thing in common in their city, and that is being able to move people in and out of the city quickly and efficiently. And so it will be a no-brainer. It will be for us. It will not help us, it was said before, with people getting to work. But like Jeanette just said, it will start to address the other transportation crises that we have, which are not spoken about. The medical transportation here in the city. We have a lot of people who are unable to appointment, and this will be the start of ensuring that we have a very robust transportation system for our residents. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Victor Davila. Just so the viewers know, the Fair Share Amendment is the so-called millionaire's tax, which will not be on the ballot in this year, but will be on the ballot in 2022. So the final question on a ferry PVTA goes to Zeta Govan.
Thank you very much. I don't know if that's something that our city can do because it's a sustainability issue on that. I agree with what Eric said as far as having the PVTA or bus run on a regular schedule so that if people need to get to an appointment or to work, they can get on time and have it run later at night. Possibly we could have some sort of a sliding fee for riders who are maybe low income. But again, we have to think about the sustainability of it. I would love to, again, I'm going to jump on the fair share bandwagon and agree that, people need to pay their fair share of taxes, and that's a whole nother question. So I won't get into that right now. But the PTA system here in the city needs to be on time. It needs to be consistent. It needs to be regular so that people can depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, candidates, I want to thank all of you for your participation tonight. Voters need to know where you stand. Voters need to know who you are, and this is part of that effort to get that information out. So now we have the opportunity for you to make some closing comments. Again, in 90 seconds, and we will continue here our rotation with Melvin Edwards going first. Melvin, 90 seconds.
First of all, I want to thank all of the organizers. I want to thank the participants. my colleagues and future colleagues on this panel today. Thank you all for your participation. I respectfully ask the voters of Ward 3 to vote for me, to give me another opportunity to continue my full-time job, which is of service to you. This is something that I take very seriously. I'm very passionate about my role on the city council. I haven't been able to accomplish anything by myself or backing. I'm very proud of my ability to communicate and communicate civilly with my colleagues and with the administration and anybody else that I need to get things done. And I encourage the voters of Ward 3, regardless of the neighborhood that you live in, to take a ride around the neighborhood and look at all of the parks, to look at the schools, the new Brookings School, the new South End Community Center, to look at the developments we've been able to spur. And I'm happy to tell you that we're not done yet. There is more work that we always can find the shortcomings in the endeavors that we have chosen to take. But I'm confident that if you would put your confidence in your vote for me and give me another term, I will not disappoint you. I will continue to do the work. I will always be accessible. And I respectfully ask for your vote on November 2nd.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next up, Les.
Alrighty, so we're going to thank the organizers of tonight and the participants. It's been an honor to be here. In running for this seat and not be an elected official already, but I believe that my past experiences and in the organization I've been in my leadership, that shows the type of person I am and my dedication. I call myself an advocate because that is what I've gotten stuff done, right? Whether it be testifying on behalf of bills that I believe are the best for Springfield and will directly impact the residents in Ward 3, whether it be working with the community organizations around environmental issues and housing issues, being in my youth programs and building pipeline, young Democrats and other young folks who either want to run for office, want to be in policy, all the different things that I've done, they showed I am dedicated to working on behalf of other people, and that's what I bring here. When I go and I talk to people and I let them know that I plan to work on their behalf, I plan to bring the entire Ward 3 to the City Council. I want to make sure that I'm working on behalf of everybody, of individual residents and those community organizations that work for the best for the Springfield. I humbly ask that you vote for me on November 2nd and believe in me stepping up for Springfield and new leader in Ward 3.
Thank you. Okay, Ward 4, Jim McDonald.
Thank you. I'm running to be the next Ward 4 counselor because we need someone with a strong voice and a clear vision. I've been working for the community by advocating for the renovation of Acorn Street tennis courts, address parking issues, and bring basketball hoops back to our parks. Ward 4 deserves a city councilor who's going to speak out on issues that matter to the community the most. One of those issues is ensure that we get our fair share of the millions of dollars of COVID funds given to the city. I'm proud to be supported by at-large city councilors Justin Hurst and B.C. Whitfield, also Hampton County Register of Deeds Cheryl Coke Rivera, and a host of other organizations. Most importantly, please remember to vote on November 2nd.
Thanks very much. Ward 6, Victor Davila.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you to all the panelists and you, the viewers, for participating in this panel today. My friends, it's really being a privilege on the City Council. I really enjoyed being City Council. I love fighting for you in the City Council. Government is complex, and regular people's voice fall through the cracks, basically at City Hall. I love doing that for you on behalf for in the City Council. Quality of life is very important to me. I don't have all the answers. I really don't. But I like to listen to everybody. I make my own decisions, fair, and my decisions are always with the mindset what's best for the ward and for the city of Springfield. My friends, I will be honored if you give me a vote on November 2nd and send me back to the city council board. Thank you. Good night and God bless.
Thank you, sir. And de Govan, Ward 8.
Thank you very much. I also want to thank the organizers for putting this forum together. I believe it was very well organized. Really appreciate the participation of reporters on here. So I want to be next Ward 8 City Council because I have been doing the work. I've been working in Ward 8 and in the city of Springfield for the last 20 to 30 years to try to improve it because I love the city of Springfield. I believe that we have a great city and that we can only make it by working together. And I have a history of working with a lot of different kinds of people. I feel like I've been on the city council for the last few years as I've been working together with City Councilor Orlando Ramos, who's now our state representative. We have worked together to bring money to Indian Orchard, work on Loon Pond, on the different ponds in area. We've
get money for this Safe Streets initiative that we're working on. And we have been doing a lot of work together to improve our community. And that's what we want to do. And that's what I want to do. I like to listen to our constituents. I'm going door to talking to people and listening to people because that I do. And I humbly ask for your vote for the Ward 8 City Council on November 2nd. Thank you very much.
Well, on behalf of my colleagues and I and Steve Carey of Focus Springfield, we want to thank all of you for participating tonight. Because again, information out to the voters is our responsibility, and we'll take it very seriously. Now, wait patiently, or maybe not so patiently, is our two candidates for the school committee, District 4. And again, we're highlighting the races that are contested for both the city council and for the school committee. So the rules for this discussion are, amazingly enough, exactly the same rules as we have for this council race. Each candidate is going to get a 2-minute open statement, and there are going to be questions from us. The answers for those questions will be 90 seconds, and will be then a 90-second closing statement as well from each of the candidates. So District 4 has Peter Murphy, who is a longtime incumbent on the school committee, and Ayanna Crawford, who is challenging him for that particular position. So, are we all set? We're all set. So I'm just going to go in alphabetical order here, just so people understand there's a method to my madness. So Ayanna Crawford, you're up first with an opening statement about you and your candidacy.
Thank you so very much, Focus Springfield, and all of you that have organized today. So my name is Ayanna Crawford. I am a lifelong resident here in the city of Springfield. I live in Ward 8. I am on several different boards in the city of Springfield. I'm on the Watch for USA, the American Red Cross, BHN, Parent Villages, the NAACP. I'm also part of the Indian Orchard Council, neighborhood point person for Neighbor to Neighbor. I'm also the ward chair of the Democratic City Committee. I created the program called Take the Mic Public Speak Program for Girls. I have a BA in psychology from Westfield State University. I have a master's degree in education from Springfield College. And of course, I've been an educator over 10 years. I'm an adjunct professor for over 4 years, and I'm currently the chief staff for Representative Ramos. And so that being said, I'm also a mother and a community advocate for our youth in terms of building up, giving them the skills that they need in order to be successful. I've worked with several different organizations around the city. I've also been a behind the scenes gal that's also making sure that everyone else looks good while we make sure that our city looks good. And so I'm certainly excited to be here and certainly excited for the robust conversation that we're going to have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now Peter Murphy, the incumbent.
Thank you very much, and again, thank you for hosting this event. Focus Springfield for hosting this event. My name is Peter Murphy. I've been on the school committee for almost 12 years now. All of my children attended Springfield Public Schools. I come from a family of immigrants who came to the city not that long ago, and we owe this city everything. And that's why I run for school committee, and that's why I care deeply about this place. My children, two of my children just graduated from Springfield Central High School this year. I still have one child in the Springfield Public Schools, so I bring parents' perspective to enroll on the school committee. I think it's really important that we focus on academic achievement. We have done a lot while I've been on the school committee, myself, but all of my colleagues. Our MCAS scores have gone up every year, beating the state every year. Our attendance has gone up. Our tardiness and absenteeism has gone down. We have really worked hard, particularly during COVID, to keep our kids safe, to keep our teachers and employees safe, to have labor peace. We've had budgetary things with our budget are been going very well.
That's time, sir.
Every year, and thank you very much.
Thank you. So just like I did the last time, my colleagues here are going to ask some questions. I'm going to lead it off with a question about What should be our next project? Right now, the city of Springfield has a great distinction. We've had about $700 million invested into new schools and the renovation of schools. In fact, more money has been spent here in the Springfield district than Boston. Something that I think that we should be proud of from our superintendent's point of view, our school committee point of view, our mayor's point of view. There's been a lot of work to try to improve the physical assets of the school system. So I have to ask you, we recently broke ground on the Dewberry Homeschool. What is going to be the next project? What should be the next project that we should seek state funding for to basically increase our capacities in our facility here in the city schools? So, Ayanna Crawford, I will ask you that question first. What's she next?
Thank you so much, Focus Springfield, and thank you for moderating this. What a great question. And so I want to sort of think about it in this way. We always talk about infrastructure. We always talk about capacity, but we've got some great assets in our city. That's our teacher force. And I think we need to build out our teaching force. We need to give them the resources and the increase in terms of their pay as we move forward. And so we understand that perhaps we do need to look at some new buildings, what have you, but I think we also need to look at our teaching staff. We need to make sure that they know that we care about them. We are humble enough that they've taken time to become teachers. And so we need to build capacity with them. We need to create opportunity to have a pipeline of teachers of color. We need to create a national search for the best practices around curriculum development. And I think we need to really focus in on how are we going to help our teachers focus in on building capacity and knowing that if in fact we get into another pandemic, what are those things going to look like for our teachers? And so I think our next big project is helping to facilitate our teacher retention and our teacher capacity.
Thank you very much. Peter?
Thank you very much, Mike. I thought the question was about the development of our school system. And obviously, we have done a lot over the last 10 years with respect to, DeBerry, Homer, Brookings, Lincoln, Brightwood. As you said, we've invested an incredible amount of money into infrastructure. I think that if we're talking about infrastructure, I thought that was your question. I think the Reina School in the North End is something that we really need to take a close look at. Although it's not a particularly old school, it was built, as many might know, sort of below water line, and it's had a lot of problems with mold, a lot of issues, and I think that that's really a school that we should take a look at to try to improve if we're talking about the physical plant. Outside of that, I think that we need to improve our technology. I would say laptops for all of our kids. We were ahead of the curve with respect to that, giving it to our children even before Corona, which helped in the transition to Corona. But I think that's something with respect to the virtual learning and the technology piece, that's something that we should invest in. Obviously, I've supported every collective bargaining agreement that the teachers have brought forward. Been very supportive of all of the teachers and labor groups.
That's time, sir. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to have Liz Romand from the Republican come up with the next question.
Good evening to both of you. At the start of the school year, the school district's nursing department expressed some concerns about its ability to do pooled COVID testing in all the schools. How do you feel the school department has handled COVID testing and safety protocols in the district this year? And with the holidays, family gatherings approaching, are you concerned or have you heard from parents that are concerned about possible outbreaks in the district? I'll start with Ayanna.
Thank you so much for that question. And if you don't, can you just clarify and repeat that question for me so that I make sure that I'm answering it in terms of what you're asking?
Sure. So in the beginning of the year, the nursing department had some struggles doing pooled COVID testing. They didn't have the equipment, or they had the equipment, but they didn't have the staffing necessary. And the school committee had some concerns about the fact they thought that was already happening, and it wasn't in fact happening at the speed at which they thought. So I'm curious about, what you've heard from parents or how you feel about how the district has handled COVID protocols in terms of safety as well as testing. And if you heard of people having concerns with the fact that, Halloween, Thanksgiving, all of the holidays are coming and people will be gathered.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that question. And so, yes, I have heard from parents that currently have children in the district. They have concern, and They should be. And I think the district is doing what they understand is right in terms of CDC guidelines and really following the protocol. We have a massive amount of students, different ways in which we understand how to present this particular type of testing. I've also heard from the nursing staff too as well. Some of them have said that it's a bit overwhelming at times. And of course, in terms of communication, it's challenging. But I think once we understand sort of how to sort of manage through it, get all the protocols together, remember, we've never been in a pandemic. We've never had to do anything like this before. And I think we need to certainly understand that this is a really big issue. We want to make sure not only our children are safe, our staff is safe, everyone is getting the proper things that they need. However, I think we definitely to improve how we communicate to parents, because we want to make sure parents understand, in fact, there are concerns with their children in the schools. We want to be able to give that information to them relatively quickly. And so I would recommend looking at our communication to our parents.
Thank you, Tim. Peter, same question for you.
Well, thanks very much. I think that, so as a parent of a student who attends Springfield Public Schools and who was at a school where there's a positive test, I think the district has done really a remarkable job. Helen Carlson and Jeannie Clancy, the head nurses, has done a really job in responding and the outreach to parents. Do rapid testing. I think the expansion of rapid testing is important when we need very nimble when it comes to positive COVID test to make sure that everyone is safe, the teachers and students and custodians, et cetera, are safe. So I think the rapid testing is something that we should expand. But I think that the outreach has been pretty good by the district. And, I've said, when my son, who attends a middle school here in Springfield, when there's a positive test, we receive an email, we receive a voicemail, and then they rapid testing in the morning to make sure that everyone's safe, and they quarantined folks that might have come in contact. So I think we've, under the circumstances, very difficult circumstances, and as Anna said, it's a district, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of employees, a lot of students. I think we've done pretty well. Ms. Colton and Ms. Clancy have done really a great job of guiding us. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you both.
Okay, with our next question is Matt Safransky.
Good evening, candidates. As you are aware, schools have their own separate allocation of American Rescue Plan Act funds at their disposal. To the extent that these have not already been fully committed, how would you like to see they be spent over the next couple of years, as long as they are available to the school department? And start again with Anna Crawford.
Thank you so much. Could you reiterate that question, please?
Certainly. The school department receives its own allocation of American Rescue Plan Act funds to the extent that they have not already been committed by the school department. I'm talking about when you'll be taking office in January or when the new term would begin in January. How would you like to see them spent on behalf of the school system?
Absolutely. Great question. I think first we have to make sure that our teaching staff gets their fair share of that particular money. I know that there's been some concerns on our teaching staff that they have. And so I would ensure that we allocate enough money for all of teachers to get some additional funding as they have navigated through this year and a half, very much, in waters that they're not very clear about. Did an excellent job on the onset of having to do remote learning, had to figure out schoology, had to figure out these new processes and systems. So I would like to make sure that our teaching staff has what we need. In addition to that, I have to look at some of our old buildings. We need to look at the environmental hazards, if we have any in our older buildings, whether it be mold, what have you. I'd like to get perhaps bringing in a environmental scientist to look at what are some of the issues around environmental things in our buildings. And then the last thing I'd like to look at is looking at some after-school programming for our youth. If we build out and create some more funding that we can have more programs around sport, arts, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Murphy, same question.
Thank you very much. And it is a great question, and we are lucky to have some extra resources. We did have Budget and Finance Committee meeting a couple of weeks ago. The school department did receive approximately $47 million in extra funding. I think it's critical that that funding go to the extent that it can. There are some strings attached to that money with respect to who you can give that money to. But it's certainly a time where we should be able to pass it on to our employees, particularly our professionals, our teachers, our custodians, people that really had to work hard through the COVID. But also, I think that we could invest in full day pre-K. I think that's critical for our urban kids. The numbers are fantastic when you have full day pre-K. You can just see the achievement is so much better for our children. And also, I think that some of the mental health issues that happened during COVID, kids were home and kids were sort of isolated, particularly our homeless kids, our special education kids. I think some of those resources need to be allocated to those folks that are struggling to recover from COVID. And I also, again, agree with Ayanna, that sports and art and music would be a good way to send some of that money. So thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're going to have a question from Paul Tuthill for WAMC Radio.
Thanks, Mike. Hi, candidates. Simple question. You support the continued presence of resource officers, police officers in the Springfield Public Schools. And first up with that is Ayanna Crawford.
Thank you for that question. I think that's a very complex question. And I think it needs some real understanding on what their role is in the school. I'm a graduate of Springfield Central High School, class 91. We didn't have resource officers in schools then. I graduated, schools were fine, children did well. And so I'm wondering and concerned about the purpose of the resource officers. So I'd like to look at understanding what their purpose is. And certainly as an educator, go through an educator program, but hope that the resource officers be going through an educator prep program as well. And so I'm not certain what their role is. And so I would need to understand their purpose other than, being there to deal with behavior. However, as a former academic intervention and behavior specialist, that's my role to do, building relationships with students, making sure they felt calm and collective. And so having the authorities, if you will, in a classroom or even in our buildings, it's concerning to me. Thank you.
Thank you. And same question to Peter Murphy.
Thank you very much. I do support having officers in schools. I think particularly with training that they're being, it is important that we have security for our kids. We saw Sandy Hook and we saw what happened down there. It was awful. And as disturbing it is, there are still shootings. We saw this week, there was a shooting in Texas, where 2 students were killed, and there was a shooting last month. So I think that it's important that we have security in our schools to keep our children safe, our teachers safe, our employees safe. That is the primary focus. And I do support that, but, there needs to be training, vigilant training, and the officers need to be kept on their best behavior and need to understand what their role is not to arrest students, is to keep students safe and keep employees safe and keep our community safe. And I think that with those types of, with that guidance, I do support officers in schools. And I think it's important, as disturbing as it may be, we do have school shootings and it is important to keep our children safe, and did review all of our security protocols, and everybody on the school committee agreed to it. In 2011 after Sandy.
That's time here. Thank you. That's time.
Thanks very much.
Okay, candidates. Again, thank you for participating in this forum, and thank you for running because we do need qualified people to run the city of Springfield. So right now, we're going to give you 90 seconds to do a sum about candidacy and about yourselves, about your experience. So again, alphabetically, we'll go with Ayanna Crawford. You have 90 seconds for a closing statement.
Thank you so much. And thank you to the organizers, Springfield Focus TV, and all of you that have put this forum together. You did an awesome job. And I certainly thank you for this platform. Being a mother, educator, and a lifelong resident in Springfield, I know that democracy The opportunity to run for office is given to everyone. And so I'm certainly excited for this run. I have been on the doors since the beginning of this campaign. I've talked to residents, I've talked to folks on the doors, and they are just very concerned about who represents them. And so I am excited that they have someone who not only knock doors, but will check in on them, that will continue to knock the doors after I'm in the seat. I make sure that there's a communication with me, my cell phone, email. I will make sure that I'm community invested, meaning that I'm working with parents and community together to solve our problems together. I will make sure that I'm listening, I'm transparent, I'm accountable for what I'm going to do, what I'm saying, and that I'm also looking at how we're moving in terms of COVID recovery and mental health, make sure that we have social emotional peace. I know that this has been a very difficult time for all of us, but we have to work together. I want to come onto the school committee with those that are currently there. I know they've been working hard, all of them. And so I just want to add to what they've been doing, that we can push what we need to do for our children, which is so important. And of course, making sure that we're working with our teachers as well. And so I ask for your vote November 2nd here in the city of Springfield. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Peter, you've got 90 seconds.
Thank you very much. And I very much appreciate Springfield and Steve and all of the hosts. And it's great to be out there. It is very difficult to run for public office. You have to put your out there, and I give Anna a lot of credit. You know, it's a very difficult thing to do. It's a lot of hard work, and I've tried my best over the last 12 years to do what I thought was best for the children in the city of Springfield. You know, my children, as I said, all went to the Springfield Public Schools. They graduated, 2 of them from Springfield Central High School, another one in middle school, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate the work of teachers, the paras, the custodians, the administrators, and what they've done for my children. And I am incredibly grateful, and that's why I'm running the school committee, and that's why I continue to run. I think that there's been a lot of achievements over the last 10 years or so with all of my colleagues on the school committee with respect to our MCAT scores, with respect to our graduation rate, with respect to our attendance rate and our attendance rates. You know, we have made tremendous progress, and we have a lot more progress. We have a lot more to do. We have a lot more work to do, but we are on the right track. And as I said, I love the city. I'm incredibly grateful to the employees and to the people of this city. And I would very humbly ask for a vote on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you to both of you for participating tonight and for, as I said, being civic-minded and willing to run for office in the city of Springfield. Folks, thanks very much for tuning in tonight. If you liked what you see, this program is, of course, going to be on YouTube, and we'll be happy to have you spread it willingly all over your social media in order to share these candidates' voices and their answers to these questions. And I want to especially thank my colleagues, Liz Roman, Paul Tuttle, and Matt Safransky for participating in tonight's forum. Thanks so much, folks. Have a good evening, and remember to vote on November 2nd.